You used to feel it when you clicked the button. Not excitement exactly. More like confirmation that you were doing something, that you were a trader, that this was real. You would enter and then immediately check the position. Then check it again. Then open Twitter to see if anyone else saw what you saw. Then back to the chart. The trade itself almost didn't matter as much as the feeling of being in it. Now you enter and forget you're in anything at all. You'll be making coffee or answering an email, and you'll remember, almost like remembering you left the stove on, except there's no panic attached to it anymore. Just a kind of flat recognition. Oh right, that. You'll check it eventually. Or it'll hit your target. Or it won't. The forgetting used to feel like carelessness. Like you were being irresponsible. Now you're starting to realize the forgetting might be the whole point, and that thought makes you uncomfortable because you don't know what it means about who you are now. 3 months ago you had a losing day, and you sat there feeling like you'd been punched. You went back through every trade trying to find the moment you broke your rules. You found it. You wrote it down. You promised yourself it wouldn't happen again. You felt terrible, and that feeling meant something. It meant you cared. It meant you were serious about this. Last week you had a losing day, and you closed your laptop and went to the gym. You didn't journal it. You didn't review it. You knew what happened. You didn't need to perform the ritual of analyzing it to prove to yourself that you knew. And that scared you more than the loss itself, because you started wondering if maybe you've stopped caring the way you're supposed to care. You used to watch 3 YouTube videos before breakfast. Some guy breaking down price action. Someone else explaining their strategy. A podcast about trading psychology. You took notes. You felt like you were learning. Like every video brought you closer to something. You couldn't even name what that something was, but the consumption itself felt like progress. Now you'll click on a video and close it 40 seconds in. Not because it's bad. Because you already know what he's going to say. You know the cadence. You know the chart example he's about to use. You know the lesson at the end. And you feel nothing about knowing it. You're not proud that you've learned enough to predict the content. You're just bored. And you think the boredom means you're getting lazy. That you're losing the hunger. That the people still watching every video and taking notes are somehow doing it right and you're doing it wrong. But here's what you're not seeing. You don't need the videos anymore and your brain knows it before you do. Your brain is trying to protect you from consuming information you already have, and you're interpreting its protection as discipline failure. You're forcing yourself to sit through content that has nothing left to give you, and when you can't do it, when you close the tab after 90 seconds, you think something is broken in you. Nothing is broken. You outgrew it. But you don't trust that because outgrowing something is supposed to feel good, and this doesn't feel like anything. You're in a group chat with other traders. You used to check it every 20 minutes. Someone would post a win, and you'd feel something. Not quite jealousy, more like evidence that it was possible, that people were doing it, that you could too, if you just figured out the thing they figured out. Someone would post a loss and you'd feel relief. See? It happens to everyone. You'd post your own trades. You'd wait for the reactions. The thumbs up meant something. The nice trade comment meant something. It all meant you were part of something. Now you open the chat and it's just noise. Someone posts a win with 7 rocket emojis. Someone else posts a chart with lines everywhere asking what people think. Someone posts a loss and 3 people reply with the same advice you've seen 40 times. And you feel nothing. You're not happy for the wins. You're not bothered by the losses. You're not interested in the questions. You scroll past all of it like you're scrolling past ads. And then you wonder what's wrong with you. Why don't you care anymore? Why doesn't their success make you feel motivated? Why doesn't their failure make you feel less alone? You think you've become cynical. You haven't. You've just stopped needing external validation for internal work. But you don't know that's what happened. So you think you're breaking. You think the thing that made you a trader is disappearing. You think the version of you that wanted it badly enough to stay up until 2 a.m. watching charts, that version was the real trader. And this version, the one that closes the laptop at 5 p.m. and doesn't think about it again until tomorrow, this version is a quitter who just hasn't admitted it yet. You used to trade size that made your hands shake. You'd be in a position, and you could feel your heartbeat. You'd set your stop, and then move it, because the loss would hurt too much. You'd watch every candle. You'd calculate the profit if it went to your target. Then calculate it again. You'd imagine what you'd do with the money. Not because you needed the money, because the imagining made it feel real. Made it feel like you were actually doing something that mattered. Now you trade smaller, and it feels right, and you hate that it feels right. Your account can handle more. You know this. You've done the math. You've seen the equity curve. You could double your position size, and your risk would still be reasonable. But when you think about doing it, something in you just says, no. Not a fearful no. Not an anxious no. Just a quiet no that doesn't give you a reason. And you think that quiet no is fear in disguise. You think you're regressing back to being scared. You think the old version of you, the one who traded bigger, was braver. But the old version of you wasn't brave. The old version of you needed the adrenaline to feel like trading was real. This version of you doesn't need the feeling anymore. This version of you knows the position is real whether you feel it or not. But you don't trust this knowing because it arrived without announcement, and it doesn't match the picture you had in your head of what a serious trader feels like. So you think about forcing yourself back into bigger size. Not because the setup calls for it, not because your system says to, but because you think the fear you'll feel will prove you still care. You wrote a trading plan 8 months ago. It was detailed. It had rules for entry and exit and position sizing and what to do when you were wrong and what to do when you were right. You printed it out. You put it next to your monitor. You read it before every session. It made you feel professional, like you had a structure, like you knew what you were doing. You rewrote it 6 months ago because something about it felt off. The rules were the same, but the language felt wrong. Too rigid, too someone else. You softened it, made it more flexible. Put it back next to your monitor. You rewrote it 4 months ago because the flexibility felt like permission to break it. You tightened it back up. Different words, same ideas. You told yourself this time it would stick. You rewrote it last month, and you didn't even finish. You got 3 paragraphs in and realized you were writing it for a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. The person who needed those rules written down, who needed to read them every morning, who needed the structure spelled out in 12-point font, that person is gone. And you don't know what to do with that because you think structure is supposed to be permanent. You think if your plan keeps changing, it means you never had a real plan at all. But your plan isn't changing because it's broken. It's changing because you are different than you were when you wrote it, and the plan is trying to catch up to who you are now. You just don't trust who you are now. You got into a drawdown 2 weeks ago, 3 losing trades in a row. The old version of you would have spiraled, would have opened the journal and gone back through 6 months of trades looking for patterns, would have questioned everything, would have posted in the group chat asking if anyone else was struggling, would have watched 5 videos about managing losing streaks, would have felt terrible and busy and like the terrible busy feeling meant you were handling it. This version of you looked at the 3 losses and thought, okay, just okay. You knew why they didn't work. You didn't need to journal about it. You didn't need to talk about it. You didn't need to consume content about it. You knew. And the knowing was enough. And that felt wrong. It felt too easy. It felt like you weren't taking it seriously. So you tried to make yourself feel worse about it. You tried to generate the anxiety that used to come automatically. You couldn't. And the inability to make yourself feel bad about losing made you feel bad about something else entirely. Made you feel like maybe you've stopped caring about getting better. Like maybe you've plateaued and you're okay with it, and being okay with it is the same as giving up. But you haven't stopped caring about getting better. You've stopped needing suffering to prove you care. The equation in your head used to be simple. Pain equals effort equals progress. If it didn't hurt, you weren't trying hard enough. If you weren't anxious, you weren't serious. If you weren't constantly consuming and analyzing and reviewing and questioning, you were coasting. And coasting was the worst thing you could do, because coasting meant you'd already accepted you'd never be great. Now the pain is gone, and you think that means the progress stopped. You're in a trade right now. You entered 20 minutes ago. You haven't checked it since. You're reading this instead. The old version of you would have the chart open in another tab, would be toggling back and forth, would be watching the price move, would be imagining the scenarios, would be feeling something. This version of you knows where your stop is, and knows where your target is, and knows that watching it won't change anything. So you're not watching it. And some part of you is wondering if this means you don't want it anymore. If the want is supposed to feel like hunger, and hunger is supposed to feel like constant attention, and constant attention is supposed to feel like caring, then what does it mean when you stop paying attention? What does it mean when the trade runs in the background, like an app you opened and forgot about? You think it means you've lost something. You think it means the fire went out. You think it means you're about to become one of those people who tried trading for a while and then stopped, and when someone asks about it, they just shrug and say, yeah, I used to do that. You can see yourself walking away, not dramatically, not after a blow-up, just a slow fade. You stop checking the charts as much. You skip a day, then 2 days, then a week. Someone asks if you're still trading, and you say, yeah, kind of, but your voice doesn't sound convincing even to yourself. A month later, you realize you haven't placed a trade in 3 weeks, and you didn't even notice. 6 months later, trading is just something you used to do, something you tried. It didn't work out, not because you failed. Just because the interest faded, and you let it fade because you thought the fading meant it wasn't for you. And the thing is, you can feel that future from here. You can feel how easy it would be to let it happen. How much easier than forcing yourself back into the old behaviors that don't fit anymore. Easier than pretending you care about things you don't care about. Easier than watching videos that bore you and posting trades for validation you don't need, and journaling losses you already understand, and tracking metrics that don't tell you anything you don't already know. You could just stop, and part of you wants to. Not because trading is hard, because it stopped feeling like anything and you think feeling nothing means it's over. Or you could do the other thing. You could force it. You could make yourself trade bigger again. Make yourself feel the fear. Make yourself watch every candle. Make yourself post in the chat. Make yourself journal every trade with the color-coded tags and the weekly reviews and the monthly deep dives. Make yourself consume content even when it bores you. Make yourself perform the rituals of effort even though they feel hollow now. You could do all of that. You could push yourself back into the shape of the trader you used to be. And it would feel terrible. Not terrible like hard work. Terrible like wearing clothes that don't fit. Terrible like pretending to be someone you're not anymore. You'd last maybe 2 weeks before the performance exhausted you. Before you realized you were putting on a show for yourself and there was no audience that cared. You'd stop. And then you'd feel even more convinced that you'd lost it. That the real version of you was the one who could do all that, and this version, the one who can't, is just weak. But here's what you're missing while you're deciding between quitting and forcing. You are not losing something. You already lost it. It's gone. The version of you that needed the adrenaline and the validation and the constant consumption and the emotional volatility, that version is dead. You didn't kill it. It just died. It used its usefulness, and then it left. And now you're standing in the empty space where it used to be, and you're interpreting the emptiness as failure. The emptiness is not failure. The emptiness is just emptiness. It's the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And you're trying to fill the gap with the things that worked before, and they're not working, and you think that means you're broken. You're not broken. You're between. You're between the trader who needed to feel everything and the trader who doesn't need to feel anything. You're between the version that consumed every piece of content and the version that knows what it knows. You're between the person who posted every trade and the person who doesn't need witnesses. You're between needing proof and having proof. You're between trying to become and already being. And being is quiet. Being doesn't announce itself. Being doesn't feel like anything in particular. Being just is. But you don't trust being, because the whole time you were becoming, you thought becoming would feel like arrival. You thought there would be a moment where you'd know you'd made it, where you'd feel different in a way you could name, where the change would be obvious and you'd be able to point to it and say, there, that's when I became a real trader. You thought there would be a ceremony. There wasn't. You just woke up one day and you were different, and the different felt like nothing. Now you're sitting in the nothing trying to figure out if it's the end or the beginning, and you're leaning toward end, because end makes more sense than the alternative. The alternative being that you already changed, and the change is so complete you can't see it from inside of it. You stopped checking your trades every 5 minutes, because you don't need to anymore. You stopped watching every video because you already know what they're going to say. You stopped posting in the chat because you don't need the validation. You stopped journaling every trade because you know what happened without needing to write it down. You stopped trading size that makes your hands shake because you don't need the adrenaline to prove the trade is real. You didn't lose discipline. You grew past needing discipline as performance. You didn't lose hunger. You grew past needing hunger to feel like effort. You didn't lose edge. You grew past needing edge to feel sharp. But you can't see any of this because you're inside it. Because the change didn't feel like change. Because it felt like loss. And you're about to make a decision based on the feeling of loss. You're about to walk away from the thing you became because you're looking for the thing you were. You check your trade. It hit your target while you were reading. You feel something small, not excitement, just a kind of recognition. The setup worked. The plan worked. You were right. The feeling lasts maybe 3 seconds. Then it's gone. And you wonder if that 3 seconds of mild satisfaction is all there is now. If this is what it feels like to be the kind of trader you thought you wanted to be. You don't know yet that the answer is yes. You don't know yet that the quiet is not the problem. You don't know yet that the boredom is not regression. You don't know yet that the absence of feeling is not the absence of progress. You just know it feels wrong. And you're trying to decide what to do with wrong, whether to fight it or surrender to it. Whether wrong means stop or wrong means keep going in a way you don't recognize as going. You'll probably try to force it first. You'll make yourself do the things that used to work. You'll trade bigger. You'll watch the videos. You'll post the trades. You'll journal. You'll perform. And it won't feel right. And you'll think that proves you were correct to doubt yourself. Then you'll probably stop. Not forever. Just for a while. You'll tell yourself you need a break. You'll tell yourself you need to figure some things out. You'll tell yourself you'll come back when you miss it. But you won't miss it the way you think you're supposed to miss it. You won't miss the feeling. You'll just notice the absence of the structure. And the absence won't hurt enough to pull you back. Or maybe you won't do either of those things. Maybe you'll just sit in the quiet long enough to realize the quiet is not empty. Maybe you'll keep trading even though it feels like nothing. And one day you'll notice you've been trading consistently for 6 months, and you didn't need motivation to do it. You just did it. The way you brush your teeth. The way you make coffee. The way you do things that are so integrated into who you are that you don't need to feel anything about them to keep doing them. Maybe you'll realize that the traders who last are the ones who figured out how to trade without needing trading to make them feel like a trader. Maybe you'll realize that you already are what you were trying to become, and the only thing stopping you from seeing it is that you're still looking for the version of it that feels like something. But probably not yet. Probably you're still sitting in the doubt, still wondering if this flatness means failure. Still comparing the quiet version of you to the loud version you used to be, and deciding the loud version was better because at least it felt like something. You're going to sit there for a while, in the space between who you were and who you're willing to admit you are, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And you're going to think the discomfort means you're supposed to do something, fix something, change something, go back or move forward. But you're not supposed to do anything. You're just supposed to notice. Notice that you changed. Notice that the change feels like nothing. Notice that nothing feels wrong. Notice that wrong might not mean what you think it means. Notice that you're still here. You're still trading, still showing up, still placing trades and managing risk, and taking profits and cutting losses. Still doing everything you were doing before. Just quieter. Just with less performance. Just with less need to prove to yourself or anyone else that you're doing it. And you think that means something is missing? But what if nothing is missing? What if this is just what it looks like when you stop trying to be a traitor, and you just are one? What if the quiet is not the end? What if it's just what comes after the noise? You won't believe that yet. You'll keep looking for evidence that you're breaking, that you're losing it, that the best version of you is behind you. You'll find evidence, too, because you're looking for it. The smaller positions, the lack of emotion, the boredom, the disinterest in what used to excite you. It'll all look like decay, but it's not decay. It's just what's left when you stop feeding the parts of you that needed feeding and you start trusting the parts that don't. You'll probably quit anyway. Or you'll probably force it anyway. Or you'll probably sit in this strange in-between place for longer than you want to, feeling like you're failing at something you can't name, waiting for a feeling that already left, trying to decide if the absence of the feeling means the presence of something else, or just absence. And one day you'll either see it, or you won't. You'll either recognize that the quiet is not emptiness, or you'll keep calling it emptiness until the word becomes true. You'll either trust that you changed, or you'll keep looking for the old version until you convince yourself the new version isn't real. You'll either keep going without needing it to feel like anything, or you'll stop because it doesn't. Right now, you're in your chair, and there's a chart in front of you, and you're supposed to care about it more than you do. You're supposed to feel something. You're supposed to want it. You're supposed to be hungry. And you're not. And you think that means it's over. It might be. Or it might just be starting. You don't know yet. And the not knowing is the only honest place you've been in months.